No video game is ever perfect. I don't think there's anything wrong in trying to explain your objective reasoning to why you like or dislike a video game like in a review, but in the end, different people are going to end up liking or disliking different things in a video game than the next person will. Some gamers believe in the phrase, the greatest game of all time. I'm not one of them. I personally think that games that fall under that title can still be thoroughly disliked by some gamers. So today, on this very special day, it's time to head into my top 20 personal favorite video games of all time. Whether it's nostalgia, pros that outweigh the cons, my personal taste with genres, my long 23 years of history with games, these are the games that have simmered their way to being priceless gems to me through the test of time. So, 2 rules. First is that it's my personal opinion. It's about my favorite video games. I'm not going over what is objectively the best in the world's eyes. And 2, 1 game per franchise to keep the variety consistent. By the way, you might have noticed that I took the 1000 subscriber tag off, because that kind of pressure just burns me out from doing countdowns. I like doing these for fun, not homework. I got college breathing down my neck for that enough as it is. Warning, this game addresses sexual themes and the game is recommended for 18 years of age or older. There isn't any indecent material like nudity in this video, but the adult topics discussed in this entry could make some viewers uncomfortable. If you feel uneasy with continuing on with this entry because of personal reasons or age, please head to this time box to skip this entry. Yes! For the first entry, we'll be going to the indie scene. Ever since 2014, it has been on fire. There have been titles like Shovel Knight, Undertale, Papers, Please, Freedom Planet. They've been kicking it into high gear about the priorities that should go into video games that we sorely need nowadays in the gaming industry. I'd go over all that, but that's a whole nother discussion for another day. So which one made the cut on my list? The reason I bought HuniePop was because I'm a huge fan of Bejeweled 3. I was getting sick of all the Candy Crush clones nowadays. I've been told that this is a huge innovation to the puzzle game in the right direction. I believed in the positive reviews. I believed in the indie industry, and I knew I was in for a real treat. Now, you have to be careful when judging this game because it looks like a naughty dating simulator game on the surface, which is fun in its own right in my opinion, but in the deep end, there's a whole lot more substance to this game than meets the eye on first booting it up. First, the goal of this game is to meet various women, and I'm gonna put it bluntly, but the goal of this game is to have sex with all of them. You do this by leveling up your dating stats by purchasing them gifts, getting to know them better, and trying to say things that would make them think more highly of you according to their personality. However, after a while you need money to do certain things like buy gifts, give them food, or booze them up, which then introduces the main gaming mechanic, going on dates. Holy hell, this is damn fun. I think this is easily one of the best puzzle games I've ever played in my life. So how it goes is that you have to fill up an affiliation meter, and if you do that, the date is a success and you're one step closer to sleeping with that girl. If you don't do this by a certain number of moves, you fail and have to improve yourself. However, as the dates go on, the affiliation meter quota gets larger and larger, which is where this game's learning curve comes in that makes it extremely fulfilling as the game gets more difficult. Now, I'm not going to go over the rules for this game as there's a lot of them, but what makes it such a masterpiece of a puzzle game is the engrossing, addicting amount of strategy and puzzle solving involved with it. It's not a simple match these then match these kind of game like Bejeweled. You have to look ahead at the different tokens. You need to customize your gifts to your advantage and playing style. You need to be mindful of what tokens to match and which ones not to match. Then there's the fact that each girl likes or dislikes some token combinations more than others. There are several things. Lastly, the game is brilliantly voice acted and full of personality. It's well put together, a great way to tie up the overall presentation, gameplay, and impression. And finally, about the revealing girls part. I'm used to it. Quite honestly, I've seen a lot of naked boys and girls in the anime and manga I read, and I'm desensitized to it. It's not a big surprise either. Both men and women who get into these hobbies from Japanese cultures have seen all sorts of shapes and sizes of nude male or female body parts, so it's not anything jarring to us. This is a Japanese game for a reason after all. Well then, hope you're ready for a fastball. Go, 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 go! No time to think. Don't mess up. Come on, man. Adapt. This is the beautiful, wonderful concept of the WarioWare series. Just think of it like Mario Party minigames dished out to you left and right at a ludicrous speed. And that's the thrill of it. You're shoved into the unknown with only a few seconds to react and complete the minigame. And that is freaking majestic at how immersive that is. For those who find tension and fulfillment in getting high scores from how fast your brain can adapt to new situations, this is definitely this series for you. So one of my best friends in high school introduced me to a lot of video games. Like, I'm not kidding. He had libraries and libraries of video games from every system imaginable. And well, I remember that one day when I checked out what happened to be in his Nintendo DS console one time when it was sitting on his bed. I flipped it open and I fell in love at first sight and became addicted to the number 19 entry, WarioWare Touched. Hands down, hands down, hands down, the smoothest controls I've ever seen in my life with its interesting concept that you could interact with the whole screen. Woo, woo. Oh god, I think I might die of fanboyitis by the end of this countdown if this is happening at the 19th rank of all places. So, WarioWare Touched. I love the pacing of its campaign, starting you off slow and basic, then builds you up to more complex and fun mechanics you could use with the stylus, such as slicing, scribbling, using the microphone, going retro, and plenty to go around. But to back this up is the amount of personality and energy that goes into each of the characters, the themes, and the games, plus it's highly original and refreshing to see so much love and care to make it to the perfect package that it is. Of course, what drew me into this game for hundreds upon hundreds of hours is just testing yourself with the minigames and challenge modes with the highest scores you could get. And besides, I hadn't ever seen this type of unique innovation with the video game before at the time ramped to this level. Just think about how fascinating this is around 2006. Wait, you touched the video game screen to play it? This had addiction fuel all over it with the polish and intense speed, and I ate it up and tore this to pieces like the carnivorous speed demon that I am with these video games. Anyone here seen my top 25 Sega Genesis games? Yes? No? If you said yeah, this one should look familiar. While the Sega Genesis may be one of my most nostalgic consoles, it's also the one I forgot the most games from since my childhood. You see, I played a ton of games between 5 to 9 years old before getting the Nintendo 64. So later on in life, this caused me trouble because you don't remember much of your games as a child. So I struggled associating these distant memories with their titles. So I had these memories burned into the back of my mind growing up in my teenager and adult years, and when the internet became more prevalent, I started to hunt them down. Some living up to the nostalgia from my childhood like Space Harrier II, Lotus Turbo Challenge, The Steel Empire, and The Sword. Well, there are other titles where my nostalgia isn't as strong as I remember, like with Rocket Knight Adventures, Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, and Golden Axe not being the great games I remember them being from my childhood. I'm sorry, but that is my honest opinion. So, the huge reason that Space Harrier II has a huge nostalgic chain locked to my ankle is because it represents a lot in what makes the Sega Genesis the standout system and what it can do to ooze that nostalgia like a wet rag out of me. It has my all-time favorite Sega Genesis soundtrack with its grit. The blast processing and speed of the game is smooth, sublime, and incredibly executed. But also to back that up is the flexible controls, the fun enemy formations, the unique boss battles, and just overall, It's my nostalgia crack from the Sega Genesis. So why put it at number 18? Its one major downside that dragged it down to the bottom of the top 20 unfortunately, is that like many other retro games at the time, is that it's a short game. Roughly around 35 to 40 minutes. Yeah, it's pretty hard to vouch for one of your greatest games ever made, even to myself, if the whole package is a small one. Remember, when Christmas comes around, everyone wants the big presents, not the small ones. So, Uncharted. Shoot, I need to talk about this awesome series sometime. Why not start now? So how I got into this series is a strange story. In 2015, I decided to give the first one a try and, I didn't like it too much. It felt like a basic third-person shooter with some climbing gimmicks thrown in there, so I stopped playing after a couple of hours in. However, I then found out something about this series from the internet community. The second and third one is way better than the first. So I redialed my expectations down lower for the first one, completed the first game, it was okay. But now on to the second and third game. Holy hell, they were right. I think the reason the Uncharted series did it for me was the same reason I got into the Legend of Zelda series, getting immersed into the large variety of environments. But Uncharted was focused more on getting blown away from what the graphics offered with the ambition of Naughty Dog, so much so that it far surpassed my love for my favorite 3D Zelda game, The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, by a long shot. The second and third one was also a whole lot better with handling the shooting mechanics, exploring the characters, and overall had a lot more polish on the experience. So the question is, which is better to me, Uncharted 2 or Uncharted 3? Well then. I picked the third Uncharted game for one simple reason. This happens to be my favorite environments to traverse throughout the whole series. Now comes the part where I'm going to hurt some feelings for Uncharted fans. I loved Uncharted 2. I bloody love that game. But what holds it back for me is that the snow in some of its environments just looks okay to look at. Not spectacular, not outstanding, just okay. Especially with the ice cavern. I think that place is jarringly bland for my taste, and that's a good section of the game. With Uncharted 3, there's a waterfall of drool that cascades out of my mouth at how gorgeous this world is. Everywhere I go, it keeps delivering. I love the desert. I love the civilizations they go to revolved around these areas. I love the wooden area, and especially when it starts burning down, it becomes intoxicating at how thorough that detail looks. I can go on. I adore the shipyard. I adore the... Okay, I'm done. But Uncharted 3 is hands down the most gorgeous video game I've ever played to date. Also, the puzzles are, in my opinion, the best out of all four of them. And yes, I have seen Uncharted 4. Sorry, but the environments from Uncharted 3 are still leagues ahead of that one in my opinion. Isn't my honesty just heartwarming sometimes? How I came across Mischief Makers was a rental somewhere around 9 years old, fresh on getting my Nintendo 64. What actually intrigued me was the female lead in this game, Marina Lightyears. There aren't a lot of girls that are on the center spotlight in video games, so I was really curious of where I would take this concept. And by golly, look at this. Mischief Makers is hands down probably the most action-oriented and violent games I've played on the Nintendo 64. And Marina is one hell of a female robot to mess with. She's really destructive with her superhuman strength, pretty much throttling everything in her wake. Bad guys, bombs, guns, ridiculously huge bosses, you name it. Marina's got power to crush it, which is what makes this game so charming and satisfying. But what I really like about this game is the 2D aesthetic with the 3D environments. It's a nice mix of retro that meshes in really well with the Nintendo 64's 3D look. I adore the replayability with having to collect the golden gems to increase the ending's length, the awesome new gimmicks that keep coming in from level to level, and I have to admit I started smirking at some of the random quirks this game has. Everybody say it with me, shake shake. So cheesy. The game just screams simple fun, simple violence, simple speed, and a lot of originality the whole journey through. And frankly, I love these games that go with more random tendencies rather than games that stick to more been there and done that roots. Do you want to know how much I love this game? My nephew inherited my Nintendo 64 from me about 5 years ago, I think. Anyways, it was brought back over to my house a few months ago, and the games were going to be sold off because the Nintendo 64 was broken. Can you believe it? My first Nintendo 64 survived for 18 years before breaking. Anyways, these are the items I kept before they hauled it off. My first controller and this game. I stashed and treasured this game dearly into my memory box. This game is that special to me. Oh man, is this one of the most charming video games I've ever played in my life. Believe it or not, Dudes with Attitude is pretty much about faces and jewel collecting. Yes, it sounds just as silly as you think it is. More specifically, it's a game that involves going from level to level trying to remove all the gems from the level, at which the only way to destroy the gems is to match up the color of your face with the jewels that you see and touch them, along with avoiding the traps and monsters. So this game is a strategy action game. Well, that's the best way I can think of to sum it up. My cousin introduced this game to me at a really young age, around 5 years old, so I will admit that nostalgia does have a decent hold on me, but it does carry some enjoyment over and why I do enjoy it from the technical and objective level as well nowadays. It gets really difficult later on, makes you think in the moment, and it's a fast game, at which all of those things cater to my personal taste of today. And also, there's a level editor. Now that is some good times right there. What strikes me about the title is its ambition and execution for an NES title. Back then, original Nintendo games had a hard time getting off the ground since the system is rather experimental with video game technology. And maybe that was the reason I fell in love with it at a young age, was because it looked like a solid concept when compared to the experimental buggy messes. Plus, it's colorful, has variety, it's inviting, and it has those cute noises. I played it several times, loved it every time, and even then, I haven't beaten the game. Even with my skills from today, those last few levels are dang tough. Guess I've got something to do after this countdown is done. Now I have heard of this controversy from this game from Screwtack and the Angry Video Game Nerd, so I guess this game might come off as weird to some people, especially on first impressions, and I can understand that. It kinda does go into its own unusual world and logic. So if it does weird you out, I won't hold that against you. But for me, it's a huge favorite of mine from my cousin showing it to me to something that's aged gracefully to today's standards. So it's my lovable number 15 entry. Now then, does anyone remember my top 10 favorite Mario games? Guess what my next game is? What? This isn't Super Mario Bros. 3? What's the big deal, Slashstar? This is Mario Golf Advance Tour, which was ranked 3rd on the list. To that, it's true. Guilty as charged. So let me explain. Super Mario Bros. 3 and the second rank on that list have a major disadvantage to Mario Golf Advance Tour. They're extremely short games. Super Mario Bros. 3 can be beaten in about 4 hours by a good player, and the second rank entry, about 5 hours. But does this mean I lied about top 10 Mario games? No. Let me explain. So the huge advantage of why I put my guilty pleasure Mario game on here is frankly because it's much, much longer, going for a solid 30 to 40 hours of gameplay. I'm way more attached to longer video games in general. It's a more thorough and complete experience for me. So as a Mario game, Super Mario Bros. 3 is my favorite Mario game, hands down. But as a video game in itself, Mario Golf Advanced Tour wins the deal for this list because of its longer playtime as a video game. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Now, as I said earlier, this is a massive guilty pleasure, so I'm sure everyone is scratching the back of the head while trying to wrap their heads around this at the same time. I mean, it's just golf, right? Well, it's a whole lot more deeply connected to my personality than you think, and what I find really fun from this game. Number one, I'm obsessed and playing with physics machines. I'm talking about catapults, trebuchets, etc. Number two, I have a strong analytical mind, so I'm obsessed with putting together math equations in my head. Number three, and this one isn't found in any other golf game I know by a long shot, I'm obsessed with fluid video games. I adore video games that give you a lot of control and options while giving you no BS from the game engine. And finally, number four, I'm obsessed with innovative games. Games that stray from consistency or stuff we've seen before to try something new. You know, stuff like the 3D Sonic the Hedgehog games in Zelda. Mario Golf has customizable stats and clubs, leveling up, an adventure mode, an overworld, side quests, a co-op computer buddy, 1 vs 1 or 2 vs 2 dueling, secret levels to unlock, and plenty more. And that pretty much sums up my love for this game. On the outside, it does look like a substandard golf game on the Game Boy Advance, and it possibly will to a lot of gamers, but for me, it's just a treasure chest full of toys that I can fiddle around with for hours on end. I guess one person's trash truly is another person's treasure.
There's a zombie on your lawn. There's a zombie on your lawn.
Now this is a genre that's talked about never on the internet, tower defense games. Now who has played Bloons Tower Defense in their numerous games? If you said yes, you're my best friend. Here, high five. If not, then I'd recommend giving it a try. Unfortunately, Bloons Tower Defense didn't make it. There are hundreds and hundreds of tower defense games out there on every free gaming site out there. But that is an honorable mention. The best tower defense game I've ever played is Technica Defense on the PlayStation 3.
Submachine guns attack all aircrafts and ground enemies.
This game makes me so happy. Oh, hold on. Gotta wipe off my drool. To start, Technica Defense is the hardest and most thought out tower defense game I've ever played in my life. It pulls no punches and it has a rough learning curve for beginner players. But once it started getting fun about 5 levels in, I kid you not, I played this for hours and hours at a time. Even today, I'm still trying to 100% this game. Have you ever got into one of those situations where you're supposed to go to bed, but you say to yourself, nope, just one more game, just one more game, just one more game, then you end up losing a lot of sleep repeating that same level? This game gave me amazing sleep deprivation, but I did not regret staying up to play it. It's that freaking fun to me. What stands out about Technica Defense is not only the difficulty and learning curves, but it has the most flexibility I've ever seen in a tower defense game to date. Usually in every tower defense game, everything usually follows a single line to the finish line. But in this game, the maps are much more expansive, a lot more diverse, and it's dang flexible to plot out where and how you want to plant your towers, and you can even make alternate paths at where you want your enemies to progress. Now that's a nice touch to innovation. I find myself crossing my fingers all the time in that my plans would work. It's extremely experimental heavy and forces you to bring out your strategist arsenal. And that's when you know that true challenge is staring in your face. And I love it for those tight moments. You know, looking back, I'd probably say this is the Dark Souls equivalent to tower defense games when it comes to trial and error. It has a high difficulty, high reward factor that makes you coming back for more because you know you can beat it and you know you have it in you to do it. And when you finally do it, it's just, oh, that rush of gratification. It's one hell of an achievement party in your body, and it's time to celebrate. Now, I understand, from what I described of this game to you, whether it's the brutal difficulty, the insane amount of branching decisions with the strategy, or the tower defense part, that's okay if this game doesn't sound appealing to you. But to me, this is my hardcore gaming drug high I get from my tower defense games. And that's why it's my number 13 entry. Mwah, mwah. Absolutely fantastic game. Definitely recommended to tower defense fans who want a challenge. Oop. Hold on. I guess I'd better add this as a last minute thing, otherwise I might piss off some Defense Grid players, since it's more popular. Yes, I have played Defense Grid. I think that's an excellent tower defense game, but I like Balloon's tower defense as the honorable mention and Technica Defense more. The reason I'm bringing this up is that some Defense Grid players have labeled Technica Defense as a ripoff of the game. I respectfully disagree. I've played through both games, and in my opinion, it has enough unique concepts for it to work as an identity for itself. Ooh, awesome. So satisfying. Let's watch that again. Now you've come to my favorite entry of all time in killing people with guns. So, I have a confession to make. I love seeing blood and gore in video games. Yep, so if you thought that innocent little Slashstar just talked about kid-friendly games like Zelda, then you clearly don't know me. So give me a third-person sniping game with a slowdown feature to see the bullet progress through the air and scramble body parts with an X-ray camera. I never get tired of it. And I never will. It's just an irreplaceable mechanic you can't find in any other game. Well, I guess a few have, but not up to the level of polish and detail this game has. But there's also a lot of things I love in this title. First of all, I love one-man army games where you're sneaking behind enemy lines. It's the reason I loved Army Men Sargent's Heroes from the Nintendo 64, despite its flaws. I adore stealth games, and having that overwhelming tension that several soldiers could instantly wipe you if you get spotted is immersion at its finest for me. It involves patience, cunning, and being resourceful with outstanding odds against you. So with Sniper Elite 3, it makes sense of this concept since snipers don't make good firefighters on the front lines. So yes, you'd better be damn quiet and keep your presence as small as possible. Plus, you don't have regenerating health, which I appreciate as an incentive to keep your guard up and don't go in reckless. And it has a radar and different alert phases, which works out really well. You're a lone sniper in the middle of a pack of wolves, and it's a lot of fun with the tension that builds off of that. Just like Metal Gear Solid and Splinter Cell, despite that it's a stealth game, you do get into your share of firefights and tight moments. I mean, it makes sense. If you shoot a sniper rifle, people are going to hear it. And you have to risk exposing yourself when you assassinate someone or shoot something critical for the mission. Also, sometimes there are other things to account for, like that enemy snipers can see you. Sometimes you have to destroy vehicles, which will get the enemy army's attention. But even so, it only adds to the experience being frantic and what to improvise with in those situations. And thankfully, very thankfully, I'm grateful that the game gives you a chance to fight back if the poop hits the fan by allowing you to have other weapons other than a sniper rifle, like a submachine gun, a pistol, and a few other small gadgets you can customize in your loadout. It feels fair, balanced, and challenging at the same time. You aren't overpowered, but not helpless either. Now, another confession. There is a major weakness to this game, is that it's extremely short. It takes about 5 to 6 hours to beat it. Playing it on the harder difficulties, it can go up to around 17 to 18 hours, and that's why I put it at number 12. I wanted it to go on much longer than it did, and it would have went up much higher on this list if it did, but it doesn't, and it's disappointing. But those pros I mentioned in this always puts a smile on my face. So it's time to talk about the controversy surrounding Sonic the Hedgehog. Hold on, stop everything. Stop the footage, stop the music. This is a really important topic. I love the Sonic the Hedgehog series. About 90% of it, including a lot of the 3D games. If you think the 3D Sonic the Hedgehog games are crap or don't like the series in general, that's fine. It's your opinion and I respect it. The reason I'm bringing this up is that this is internet territory. Disrespecting gamers who like the 3D Sonic the Hedgehog games or Call of Duty is a bandwagon thing that has developed from the internet. I don't agree with this at all. I respect anyone at what games they choose to play. I'm not saying that all gamers are like this who roam the internet, but it's a negative trend around these parts and I am not friends with gamers who disrespect opinions. Sorry for being blunt, but this is really important for me to address this. Alright, let's move forward. So this is the reason I love the 3D Sonic the Hedgehog games. So, pop quiz. What did I say in the number 16 entry Mischief Makers and the number 14 Mario Golf Advanced Tour entries on the types of games I tend to enjoy and the types of games I sometimes avoid? And frankly, I love these games that go with more random tendencies rather than games that stick to more been there and done that roots. I'm obsessed with innovative games. Games that stray from consistency or stuff we've seen before to try something new. You know, stuff like the 3D Sonic the Hedgehog games in Zelda. And that's really the answer. I love the 3D Sonic the Hedgehog games because they are random ideas. They mix things up, and I like games that offer variety over games that stick to their consistent ideas. So my favorite 3D Sonic game and my favorite Sonic game overall is... I'm dead serious. Sonic Heroes is my 11th overall favorite video game. Yeah, so this is a surprise since it's a mixed review game. I won't hold back. Let's start with the aesthetics. Easily my favorite graphics and level design from the series. I adore the changing environments that come to you from each new level. They look absolutely marvelous in the Sonic universe and at how the characters you control interact with it. It's very fluid and very well paced. My favorite levels in this game are actually all of them. I love every single course in this game with an outstanding passion. And I have to mention this and put it up in bold on the screen. This entire soundtrack is extremely memorable and easily my favorite in the series. The gameplay is gorgeous. Just like the changing levels, the gameplay is impacted with your three characters as you move from stage to stage, and in my opinion, I appreciate that they took the game beyond the simple one-dimensional gameplay mechanic of run to the goalpost with Sonic as fast as you can, and adding some flavor and strategy with your teammates. Just overall, I think it's breathtaking at how they executed this variety to keep the gameplay very fresh and very entertaining. Now, the downsides. Having to play the game a total of 4 times. I admit that is a problem for some gamers, but not for me personally. Because I love the game so much and got so immersed into it, I didn't care. In fact, I welcomed it. Plus, the extra challenges were fun too for some added replayability. And the Chaos Emeralds, yes, I agree, those are horrifically bad. Thank goodness it doesn't last long. Now with the bad controls of this game I hear about, especially from the speed character in the rail sections, truth be told from my side, I somehow didn't have a problem with it like other players did. My speed character worked quite good on those turning corners. I didn't have problems with transferring rails. I don't know, couldn't tell you how I was one of the few who didn't have any trouble with the controls. Overall, I think it's the aesthetics, the charm, the differing environments, the perfect balance between speed and platforming, that godly memorable soundtrack that cements this game for me time and time again whenever I play it. You did good, Sonic.